for watching. Thank you for joining us on, wow, another major news day. And when I say major, I am again talking about President Biden's dog, who last night I informed you bit an employee of the National Park Service. This was his second attack this month. And then today we learn via the AP that Major or his colleague Champ has defiled the hallway outside the reception room just off the White House South Lawn. What a scoop that is. I like that the White House dog making a bowel movement is a news story. A year ago, we were out of ventilators. Okay? Meanwhile, it was a day of celebration for about half of college basketball fans here in L.A. Our 11th seeded UCLA Bruins beat #1 seed Michigan in a thriller last night to advance to the Final Four, where they will face off against the fictional school known as Gonzaga. Gonzaga is undefeated because you can't beat something that doesn't exist. They're set to play UCLA on Saturday. You know, for the last few years, I've been challenging the world to show me proof, any kind of proof that Gonzaga exists outside this basketball team they put together to make everyone think there's a university in Spokane, but no one's been able to do it. They tried to get me to come up there, probably so they could kill me and silence me. But I'm no dummy. That's not happening. The question is, have you ever met anyone who went to Gonzaga? Of course not. As I've said before, it's like Wakanda. They always say, this is what they say, Bing Crosby went to Gonzaga. And, of course, we can't verify that because Bing Crosby has been dead for I don't know how long. So I did a little Googling this afternoon. There are no famous people who went to Gonzaga other than Bing Crosby. So I looked up Bing Crosby's movies, and I noticed something. Follow along here. Look at this. Gonzagais. And what does that spell? Gonzaga is fake. Bingo. Bing-o. I rest. Come on, QAnon. You want a real conspiracy? Look into this. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is having a bad week after a bombshell report by the New York Times last night. If you're not familiar with Matt Gaetz, this is his Twitter profile. That should tell you all you need to know. Matt Gaetz is basically the shrimp tail in your Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He is not well-liked by anyone, and he's reportedly being investigated by the Department of Justice. They're looking into whether or not he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her travel across state lines, which becomes sex trafficking. Gaetz, by the way, was the only congressman, Democrat or Republican, to vote against a law that gave the government more power to fight human trafficking. He's one of the worst of the worst. Even his fellow Republicans are reportedly celebrating this. Not only does Gaetz deny the charges, he tried to explain to Tucker Carlson last night that the real victim is him.
What is happening is an extortion of me and my family involving a former Department of Justice official. On March 16th, my father got a text message demanding a meeting wherein a person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away.
You can really tell he's speaking from the heart and not from a statement his lawyer wrote on the screen. You ever notice it's always my father with these guys? My father. My father was investigated because when you pull his finger, a fart would come out. And they called it domestic terrorism. But I'm interrupting. Go on.
I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of something that you did not do, and so you know what this feels like.
And now Tucker's like, how the hell did I get roped into this?
You just referred to a mentally ill viewer who accused me of a sex crime 20 years ago. And of course, it was not true. I'd never met the person. But I do agree with you that being accused falsely is one of the worst things that can happen.
Yes, I know this because I do it almost every night on my show. Although, to be fair to Tucker Carlson, all of his viewers are mentally ill. So it wasn't just... This interview was so all over the place, you'd think Matt Gaetz owned a pillow company.
What is the basis of that investigation? What is the allegation? That's really not very clear from these news stories.
Yeah, again, I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly.
This is like when your college roommate shows up and meets your new wife and starts saying things. Remember the time we had that threesome with a goat? And you're like... Gaetz went on to say he suspects he's being targeted because his father is rich and he's a prominent Republican. He even named the former DOJ official he said is targeting him. But this isn't a partisan investigation. In fact, it was opened by Trump's Attorney General, Bill Barr, who reportedly didn't want to be seen with Matt Gaetz in public. According to Politico, Barr was supposed to do a meet and greet with some Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee, but canceled when he found out Gaetz was going to be there. So this explanation and his behavior flustered even his dinner pal Tucker, who did a little post-mortem for the folks watching at home.
If you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted.
This is a man who interviewed someone who claimed Hillary Clinton was running a satanic pedophile operation out of a pizza place. So there's always a twist. Hey, speaking of politicians under investigation for sex stuff, Governor Andrew Cuomo today signed legislation that would legalize recreational marijuana in the state of New York and said, now, please, everyone go smoke it and forget about the women I played grab ass with. Thank you. That's good news. That SpongeBob SquarePants musical is finally going to make sense. Trump's former White House trade advisor, this guy, Peter Navarro, was on Fox News taking shots, again, at poor Dr. Fauci.
Fauci is a sociopath and a liar. He had nothing to do with the vaccine. The father of the vaccine is Donald J. Trump. What is Fauci the father of? Fauci's the father of the actual virus.
It's nice to see the people who work for Trump will get to enjoy a long career of spouting inane nonsense on TV for the rest of their lives. And watch the heavily lipstick dummy Fox News host nodding along with him.
This virus, according to Bob Redfield at the Centers for Disease Control, came from the Wuhan lab. And basically, we had Fauci not only funding that lab with American taxpayer dollars, he authorized this thing called gain-of-function research. He allowed the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army, to genetically engineer a virus using gain-of-function. I call it the Fauci virus now. If he wants to be the father or something, he's the father of the virus that's killed over 500,000 Americans.
I agree. Dr. Fauci needs to go on the Maury Povich show right now to confirm whether or not he is or isn't the father of the coronavirus. Peter Navarro should get off Fox News and onto some antipsychotic medication because it really is the revisionist history that we're seeing on a daily basis now. It would be shocking if we were capable of being shocked anymore, but the tunes have changed so much from a year ago, and so now it's time to look back at what was in the news 1 year ago this week in a new installment of This Week in COVID History.
This Week in COVID History. As we head into April 2020, President Trump is a ratings hit. Mr. Trump and his coronavirus updates have attracted an audience of 8.5 million, roughly the viewership of the season finale of The Bachelor. That's not me talking. That's literally what the president tweeted. Word for word. It was weird.
Did you know I was #1 on Facebook?
#1 on Facebook. So, Mr. #1, how do we beat this pandemic? Maybe by wearing masks. The CDC says it's a good idea.
With the masks, it's going to be really a voluntary thing. You can do it. You don't have to do it. I'm choosing not to do it.
Great thinking, Mr. T. Who needs masks when you have tonight's sponsor? Hydroxychloroquine.
Chloroquine.
Hydrochloroquine. Hydroxyquinolone.
It's unbelievable and totally untested.
We have purchased 29 million pills. We're sending them to the hospitals. We're sending them all over. There are signs that it works on this, some very strong signs.
But don't just take his word for it.
Everything shows that it works.
I think this is the beginning of the end of the pandemic. I'm very serious.
I think history will judge who's right on this debate. I bet on President Trump's intuition on this one.
Yes, our president knows best.
What do you have to lose? Take it.
Yes, just shut up and put it in your butt. This has been This Week in COVID History.
Simpler times. Thanks for watching. Remember, every time you click the subscribe button, one of your enemies gets destroyed.